In this episode, I'm going to discuss with you the main benefits of consuming protein while strength training and the optimal amounts you need to take in order to support your training. Hey everyone, it's Mark here from CrossFit Essendon, where we help you improve your strength, fitness, and body composition using our CrossFit training methodology. If you're new here, then be sure to check us out on Instagram or Facebook by searching for CrossFit Essendon. Otherwise, if you'd like to come down to CrossFit Essendon and take up one of our trial offers, then just go to Google, type in CrossFit Essendon in the search bar, and you can find our website and all of our introductory offers through there. So let's get into today's episode, where I'm going to talk about the main benefits of consuming protein while strength training and the optimal amounts you need to be consuming to support your training. Protein is one of the three macronutrients that we can consume in our diet. So a macronutrient are things like proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. Each of the macronutrients will give us a certain amount of energy, which our body can then use for bodily functions and for energy production. For example, proteins and carbohydrates per gram have about 4 calories, which our body can then use for structural purposes or for energy production. Whereas fat is a bit more energy dense. 1 gram of fat has 9 calories, which again, our body can use for bodily functions or for energy production. A really important point about protein is that protein is described as being an essential nutrient which we need to consume in our diet. Essential just means that our bodies cannot create new proteins. We need to ingest protein from food in order for our body to get new protein. If we don't ingest protein from our diet, our body will just get proteins from other sources in our body, such as from our muscle. So if we're not consuming enough protein from our food, then the breakdown of the protein from our muscle is going to be greater, which is not a good thing. We do not want our body to tap into our muscle stores, because eventually, if we lose too much muscle over a long period of time, this is going to mean that our metabolism is going to drop, and this is going to significantly affect our performance in the gym, but also our health and longevity. So when we consume protein, they get broken down into things called amino acids, which are the building blocks of new proteins. These amino acids are then absorbed through our small intestine and then into our bloodstream, and they then form the basis of larger, more structural proteins in our bodies, such as things like our skeletal muscle, which we can see on our arms and on our legs. So in saying that, let's get into a bit more of today's main topic, which is how much protein we need to consume while performing strength training. So the whole point of consuming protein while strength training is to help build muscle tissue. Muscle is a very dynamic tissue in the sense that it is always being broken down and being renewed. Muscle is not a static item in our body, which is always just staying stationary. It is always being broken down and being renewed and being replaced with new tissue. This is why we say that muscle is really metabolically active, because it's always going through this process, and muscle requires a lot of energy for it to maintain its size and its structure. In sports nutrition or in sports science language, the process of building new muscle is known as the fractional synthetic rate. So this is basically the rate and the synthesis and the creation of new muscle tissue. As opposed to, there is also the opposite. There is the breakdown of muscle tissue. So this is known as the fractional breakdown rate. So at all times during the day, 24/7, our muscles are continuously going through this process of synthesizing new muscle and breaking down new muscle and breaking down the muscle that it currently has. So a really important concept to understand is that when we consume enough protein in our diet, it can help improve the fractional synthetic rates and help improve our muscle building. Consuming protein helps build more muscle, and it helps maintain the muscle that we have. When strength training, we need to consume enough protein to make sure that our fractional synthetic rates are greater than our fractional breakdown rates, Otherwise, we would lose muscle. This is another important reason as to why, if you're always going through diets and if you're always restricting calories and if you're not consuming enough protein, you risk increasing your fractional breakdown rates higher than your fractional synthetic rates. And this would mean that you would lose muscle over time. If you are constantly going on low calorie diets, if you're always restricting calories, thinking that you need to do that to lose weight, eventually that's not going to be a good thing. You're going to eventually lose muscle, and that's going to lead to a lower metabolism in the long term, which is not what we want for our health and fitness. So basically, how much protein do we need to ingest in our diet in order to improve our muscle and to maintain its size? This basically depends on things like your training age, so how long you've been training for, the volume of work that you do in the gym, and the intensity of workouts that you are putting your body through. For example, if you have a higher muscle mass, if you're a bodybuilder, you have a lot of muscle, you're going to need a lot more protein compared to someone who has a really low muscle mass. And if you're doing a lot of volume in the gym, so if you're doing, say, 20 sets per muscle group per week, as opposed to 6 sets of work per muscle group per week, those protein requirements are going to be a lot different because the amounts and volume of work that you're doing is significantly different. As a general rule, a good range to start from when choosing protein intake in your diet is to aim for anywhere between 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight of protein per day. So what does that mean? If we say we're looking for 2 grams per kilogram of body weight of protein per day, if you're someone who weighs 70 kilos, then that equates to about 140 grams of protein per day. Anywhere between that 1.6 to 2.2 grams is a good starting point, and you might do some testing on yourself to see what works for you. If you're looking to go through a bit of a bulking phase and increase your muscle size, then you might play around with those ranges to see what works for you, to see what helps with your recovery the best. Anywhere between that 1.6 and 2.2 grams is what you're looking to go for. Where do we get our protein sources from? So animal proteins are the best sources of proteins that we can get. So things like beef, seafood, chicken, eggs, milk are higher quality protein sources which our body can utilize and absorb really well, and those sources can then be used for those muscle building functions which I spoke about before. Can you get bigger and can you add muscle if you're a vegan or a vegetarian? Absolutely. The only thing is that your protein sources will have to be a bit more particular, and you'll have to make sure that you're getting enough adequate, good quality protein from those sources to make sure that you can improve your muscle size while training. Now, amounts of protein in food. So it's not to say that, just say you're aiming for 140 grams of protein. It's not to say that you need to eat 140 grams of chicken. 140 grams of chicken does not equate to 140 grams of protein. There are different amounts of protein in the food that we eat. So for example, 100 grams of chicken equates to about 30 grams of protein. 3 whole eggs equates to about 21 grams of protein, whereas 100 grams of tofu equates to about 8 to 10 grams of protein. So you will need to look up the amounts of food that you're eating in grams or in cup sizes and equate that to the protein that you're getting from that food. And then if you do that on a regular basis, day by day, you can see exactly how much protein that you're ingesting to see if it's meeting the needs for your training, if it's between that 1.6 and 2.2 grams per kilo mark, which I spoke about before. So this is the end of this episode, and I'm curious to know, where do you get your protein sources from? Is it from egg? Is it from beef? Is it from seafood? Or if you're a vegan, what sort of vegan options do you go for to increase your protein? Comment below, as I'm curious to know what your thoughts are and where you get your protein sources from. Otherwise, if you are keen to come down to CrossFit Essendon and check out one of our trial offers, then just go to CrossFit Essendon through Google. Just type in CrossFit Essendon on a Google search. and you can check out our website and you can see all of our trial offers here. Otherwise, thank you for checking out this episode, and I will see you next time.